North Carolina. From the mountains to the sea, it's a place with abundant and diverse streams, rivers, lakes, and wetlands. Tasked to manage and protect the various waterways in one of the fastest-growing states is the Wilmington District Army Corps of Engineers. The Corps' mission is based on the Clean Water Act of 1972 and the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899. These acts require the Corps to issue permits for the discharge of dredge or fill material and/or for any work in or affecting a navigable water of the United States. When issuing permits, the Corps is responsible for ensuring that the project doesn't result in degradation of the nation's waterways. This includes large lakes, rivers, and floodplain wetlands, but also small tributaries and headwater wetlands. Due to the historical loss of these aquatic resources, in 1989 a national policy of no net loss of wetlands was established. This policy was intended to ensure that wetlands were replaced at a rate at least equal to the pace at which they were lost due to project impacts. This concept of replacing the lost functions of wetlands and waters is known as compensatory mitigation. Because wetlands and streams play such an important role in the overall health of our waterways, mitigation is critical in preserving the biological, chemical, and physical integrity of our waterways. In 2008, the Corps of Engineers and the Environmental Protection Agency issued the final rule on compensatory mitigation, which provides the most complete guidance to date and sets the current standards for mitigation requirements. Additionally, mitigation for impacts to aquatic resources may be required by North Carolina state law. Using mitigation to preserve or replace aquatic resources is, however, the last part of a three-step process. All authorized project developers must first try to avoid and then second, minimize any harmful impacts before mitigation becomes a consideration. Once a Corps project manager has determined that a project has avoided and minimized impacts to the maximum extent possible, compensatory mitigation may still be required. Under federal regulations, there are different kinds of compensatory mitigation, including restoration, enhancement, preservation, or creation. The most common method of mitigation in North Carolina is restoration. Restoration involves identifying former aquatic systems that have been previously impacted, then restoring the lost functions and returning them to the Corps' jurisdiction. That's why this form of mitigation is typically preferred over other forms. Enhancement means making some form of improvement within an existing wetland or stream system. It does not meet the no net loss standard, but it does result in functional replacement. Preservation generally means providing long-term protection for existing aquatic resources to prevent future impacts. This approach is normally not preferred because it doesn't meet the intent of no net loss. There's also the creation or establishment of aquatic systems. This type of mitigation normally involves a great deal of engineering and typically has a higher risk of failure. Because of this, creation is not valued as much as restoration, although if successful, it may result in full functional and jurisdictional replacement. North Carolina has an active and diverse community of environmental consultants and engineers that specialize in restoration and enhancement activities. Corps project managers work closely with these consulting professionals to develop successful restoration plans utilizing the most up-to-date tools and practices. Currently, Wilmington District has over 500 enhancement and restoration sites throughout multiple ecoregions within the state. Once it's determined that mitigation is necessary, Wilmington District permit applicants have different choices on how to proceed. Purchasing credits from a mitigation bank is generally a more preferred method to provide mitigation than by permittees doing it themselves. A mitigation bank is a site or collection of sites where stream or wetland resources have been restored, enhanced, established, or preserved, resulting in improved functionality. Developers of the banks are then able to sell credits representing improved functionality. They are also required to provide financial assurances to help reduce the risk and uncertainty that functional improvements will be successful. The benefit to the permittee is that they can transfer the mitigation obligation onto the bank, freeing them from time-consuming and costly requirements of developing a bank or providing permittee responsible mitigation. This process requires the permittee to pay the bank prior to conducting the permitted activity, and the purchase price of the credit is set by the bank. Currently, North Carolina has approximately 22 approved mitigation banks throughout the state. These banks are located in many different river basins and include several municipal umbrella banks, in addition to the more traditional private mitigation banks. Private mitigation bankers work with interagency review teams, known as the IRT, that includes core staff to develop and establish successful mitigation banks in accordance with applicable policies and regulations. Another mitigation alternative is an in-lieu fee program. Similar to a mitigation bank, the in-lieu fee program takes full responsibility for the mitigation requirement once they've been paid. The primary difference is that the mitigation is generally developed after the impact has taken place. In the Wilmington district, we have an in-lieu fee program known as the North Carolina Ecosystem Enhancement Program, or EEP. It's run by the state's Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Like with banks, payment is made prior to conducting the permitted activity, and the purchase price of the credit is set by the EEP. The EEP is also responsible for providing mitigation for permitted impacts to aquatic resources, typically through restoration or enhancement of different aquatic resource types. For both mitigation banks and in-lieu fee programs in North Carolina, mitigation work is typically conducted in the same river basin as where the impact occurs. As for permittee responsible mitigation, this is when the permit recipient conducts the mitigation. As mentioned earlier, this form of mitigation is generally discouraged because of all the considerations, including developing a plan, construction, land costs, site protection, and financial assurances. Permittee responsible mitigation typically occurs at or near the project site, unlike mitigation sites for banks or the EEP. For more information about mitigation within the Wilmington district, visit the mitigation page of the district website. The district site also has links to other sources of information on mitigation, including regulatory in-lieu fee and Bank Information Tracking System, or RIBITS, which tracks banks within the Wilmington district and across the country.